Good morning, students. Good morning to all. On last day, we have studied about the role of commercial bank in economic development, right? So just we will remain about the same topic, role of commercial banks in economic development, and after that we will go to the next concept. Okay. Yesterday also we have studied about the role of commercial bank in economic development. In our economic development, the commercial banks helps a lot and in different ways. First, how the role of how the commercial banks helpful to increasing the capital formation in our nations mean. First, the banks are collecting the deposits from the different type of the peoples, and it will provide the collected deposit to the others people such as the entrepreneurs or any of the manufacturer, those who has the industrial sector. So here the commercial banks are mobilized the small savings of the people scattered over a wide area through their network of branches all over the countries and make it available productive purposes. Productive purposes means so it will be providing the more productive are the entrepreneurs. So nowadays banks offers attractive schemes to induce the people to save their money. If there is no benefit of the peoples when they are depositing the money in the bank, so no one will ready to deposit their money. Okay, so by attracting the observing the deposit, so the commercial banks introduce the new types of the schemes. So the schemes will be induced to the peoples to saving their money. So whenever they saving the money in the banks, so it will be creating the more capital formations. Okay, so the commercial banks will providing the rate of interest, the reasonable rate of interest or the interest rates on their deposits for the people. So the people also will be attracted by the interactive schemes. Next, creation of credit. So the bank also create a credit for the purpose of providing more funds for development projects. So the development projects means so it will be provided to the entrepreneurs or any of the productive purpose for the government and the individual also. So the credit creation leads to increase the production, employment, sales and prices of, and thereby it will bring the free economic development. So whenever we are providing the financial assistance to the entrepreneur, he will be increasing their industrial sectors. So whenever the industrial sectors are increased in our nations, it will be bring about the production and the employment and sales. So any of the factors in this three is increased, so automatically our economy will be developed. Next is channelizing the funds towards productive investment. So the banks invest the savings mobilized by them for the productive purpose. So wherever the required amount is needed to increasing the productive capacity or increasing the productive purpose, so it will be giving more funds. So pooled savings should be allocated to various sectors of the economy with a view to increase the productivity. So nowadays, whatever the productivity or how the productivity will be increased to economic development, it will be possible. Next, encouraging right type of industries. Okay, so the commercial banks also encouraging the right type of industries. Right type of industries mean which industries has the more demanded or which industries are producing the more demanded commodities. Okay, if other commodities, if other industries are producing some of the non-required commodities mean, so it will be reduced to the fund order to that commodity to the industries, and it will be increasing the right type of the industries. So many banks help in the development of the right type of industry by extending loan to right type of persons. So in this way, they help not only for industrializations of the country, but also for the economic development of the country. So they grant loans and advances to manufacturers whose products are in great demand. Suppose if any of the commodity is not having the great demand, and if it is produced by any of the entrepreneurs, so it will be reduced, and it will be encouraged to the right type of industries whenever they produce the high demanded commodity. Next, bank monetize debt. So commercial banks, already I told so commercial banks transferring their loans to be repaid after a certain period into a cash. So normally the commercial banks are providing the short-term loan and the long-term loan. So in this type of loans also will be turned into the cash within a particular period. Okay. So when they are turning the loan within a particular period, so it will be also increasing the economic development. Next, finance to the government. So the government is acting as the promoter of industries in underdeveloped countries for which finance is needed for it. So all the countries must be taking some of the public expenditures for absorbing the foreign exchange and the foreign direct investment also. Okay, so the government must be need more financial facilities. So in this time, the commercial banks only is providing the demanded money for the bank. Next, employment creations. So after the nationalization of big banks, banking industry has grown to great extent. And whenever the banking the needed or the number of bank is increased, so in this bank itself, different type of the employment or more employment opportunity will be increased. And not only that, by the way of providing the financial assistance to the entrepreneurs, they will be increasing the industrial sectors. So whenever the industrial sector is increased, so automatically the employment opportunity will be created in that premises. Next, banks promotes entrepreneurship. So in recent days, banks have assumed the role of developing entrepreneurship, particularly in developing countries like India. So whenever the entrepreneurs are increasing in our nations or any of the nations, so on the basis of the number of entrepreneurships and the creations of more industrial sector only will be bringing them more GDP. So we must create more entrepreneurs to producing any of the commodity within a particular period. So now the commercial banks are providing many financial assistance to the entrepreneurs, those who are not having the required money or required finance. So these 8 points are role of commercial banks. Next also we have studied the non-banking financial institutions. Non-banking financial institutions mean suppose some of the financial institutions does not have the full banking license. It is called non-banking financial institutions, and it is not supervised by the central bank also. And central bank. So yesterday also we have studied some of the points about the central bank. So every nation must be having one of the central bank for the purpose of doing all these things regarding one government. So in our nations also one of the central banks are existing. The central bank is called as the Reserve Bank of India. The Reserve Bank of India formed on April 1st, 1935 in accordance with the RBI Act. RBI Act means Reserve Bank of India. So Reserve Bank of India Act 1934, the Reserve Bank of India was formed. And later it was nationalized on January 1st, 1949. After became the nationalized, so this RBI bank fully owned by the government of India. So the headquarters of the Reserve Bank was located at the Calcutta, After that, it was moved from Calcutta to Mumbai in 1937. So here, one of the governor will be there. Under the guidance of the governor only, so all the authority decisions will be issued. So Osborne Smith was the first governor of Reserve Bank of India. So this Reserve Bank of India only will be regulate for all the banks in India, and it is also called as a lender of last resort. Okay, we will see some of the functions of central bank. So what are the functions are held by the central bank mean? First one is monetary authority. So the central bank only controls the supply of money in the economy. Why the central bank have to control the supply of money mean? To stabilize the exchange rate, maintain the healthy balance of payment, and attain the financial stability, and control the inflation, strengthen banking system. So if you want to controlling the inflations, maintain the balance of payment, and stabilize the exchange rate, and creating the strengthened banking system, the Reserve Bank of India must be controls the money supply. Because already we have studied in this inflation, so the supply of money is increased, so automatically the inflation rate will be increased, right? If the inflation is increased, means automatically the value of money will be decreased. Then our foreign exchange rate also will be decreased. So we can't maintain the healthy balance of payment. So every nations must be maintain the equal balance of payment. So our import and our export also must be equal. Otherwise, it will be creating the disequalities of foreign exchange. Okay, and if you want to maintaining the strengthening banking system, so the money supply is the controls of money supply is very important. Okay, so all the monetary authority will be controlled by the Reserve Bank of India. So because of that, so the money supply will be in controlled. Next, the issuer of currency. You all know who is issue the currency note, the Reserve Bank of India. So except the 1 rupee note, so all the currency is issued by the Reserve Bank of India. The 1 rupee note only issued by the financial ministers or the Ministry of Finance. So except the 1 rupee note, so all the currency is issued by the Reserve Bank of India. So the objective is to maintain the currency and the credit system of the country. So we have studied, if you have the inflation or the deflation situations, so the government only have to control the both situations. Okay, so regarding on behalf of the government, the Reserve Bank of India only have to doing this work. Okay, so one of the objective is to maintain the currency and the credit system of the country. So the Reserve Bank of India will be issue the currency. So whenever our credit amount is increased on the government's name, so it must be taking some of the action to reducing the credits. So it is the sole authority to issue the currency. Sole authority means, so the Reserve Bank of India only is considered as a monopolist to issue the currency. It also takes action to control the circulation of fake currency. Fake currencies mean, so sometimes the fake currencies also will be circulated in our nations. Okay, so whenever we have the fake currencies, it will be controlled by the Reserve Bank of India. Next, the issue of banking license. Now many private banks and nationalized banks and all the commercial banks also existing throughout our nations. But before started any of the banking, this bank must be receive the license from the Reserve Bank of India. So the issuing the banking license is promoted by the Reserve Bank of India only. As per the section 22 of Banking Regulation Act, every bank has to obtain a banking license from RBI to conduct banking business in India. Next, bankers to the government. So of every individual persons also having one of the bank to improve their personal life or their business. So like that, the government also has one of the separate bank to improve the activities of government or the nations. So it acts as a bankers both to the central and the state governments. So the Reserve Bank of India also helps more to the central or the central and the state governments. It provides short-time credit. Short-time credit means so maybe below 1 year or within a 1 year. So it manages all new issues of government loans, servicing the government debt outstanding, and nurturing the market for government securities. So instead of selling the government securities, so the government will not be sell as directly. So on behalf of the government, the Reserve Bank of India only will be doing the buying and selling activity of the securities. So it advises the government on banking and financial subject. So whenever the government will be in need of having the advice to improve their financials, it will be providing the financial subjects. Next, bankers bank. So every individual persons, if they need of having any amount of money, he will be approach any one of the bank. So like that, every bank also will be need one of the central or the core bank to improve their personal financial ability. Okay, then who will provide the financial assistance if the banks are having in the need of money? So any of the organizations must be need, So the Reserve Bank of India is considered as a bankers bank. So all the bankers will be borrowed the money from to the Reserve Bank of India only. The Reserve Bank of India is the bank of all banks in India, as it provides loan to banks, accept the deposit of banks, and rediscount the bills of banks. Okay, so Reserve Bank of India only will be doing many activities to eradicate the conflicts among the banks. Next, lender of last resort. Whose last resort? So the banks can borrow from the RBI by keeping eligible securities as a collateral at the time of need or crisis when there is no other source. So all the banks must be having some of the organization to borrow the money if they have any of the need of more financial ability. Okay, so on behalf of the all other commercial banks, the Reserve Bank of India will be discounted their other source. So for that, the commercial banks must be submitted the eligible securities as a collateral. So on the name of the collateral securities, so every time or all the time the reserve any commercial banks can able to borrow the money from the Reserve Bank of India. Next, act as a clearing houses. Clearing houses means already we have studied some of the settlement of banking transactions. Settlement means so every banks also will be have some of the transaction among the commercial banks. For example, now if we want to change the checks from one bank to another one of the bank, it will be doing by the clearing houses only. So this facility is provided by the Reserve Bank of India only. So Reserve Bank of India manages 14 clearing houses. It facilitates the exchange of instrument of processing of payment instructions. Payment instructions means so any of the conflict and some contradictions if it is arised on behalf of the all other commercial banks. So the Reserve Bank of India it will be doing something. Next, custodian of foreign exchange. Custodian of foreign exchange means the Reserve Bank of India will be protect the foreign exchange or it will be maintaining the foreign exchange. So Reserve Bank of India acts as a custodian of forex. Forex means foreign exchange. It administers and enforces the provision of Foreign Exchange Management Act. So simply we will call it as a FEMA. So RBI buys and sells foreign currency to maintain the exchange rate of Indian rupees. This is the foreign currencies. So every nation must be maintained the positive value of the exchange rate or high value of exchange rate. So if we are maintaining the higher value of the exchange rate only, our money, the value of money may be increased or it will be equalized. Okay, so the Reserve Bank of India will be doing that work. So the protections of foreign exchange. Next, regulator of economy. So the Reserve Bank of India controls the money supply in the system, monitors different key indicators like GDP, inflation, etc. So whatever may be, if any of the problems or if any of the unwanted situations like the inflations or the deflations, so the Reserve Bank of India only have to bring it to the control. Okay, by the way of bringing the control, so the economy will be controlled. So the Reserve Bank of India only will be doing that work as a regulator of economy. Next, managing government securities. So now we have studied the government securities going to sell and buy by the Reserve Bank of India. So any government must be selling their securities in the time of inflation or the deflations. Okay. So on behalf of the government, the Reserve Bank of India only will be doing the role. Next, regulator and supervisor of payment and settlement system. So the Reserve Bank of India only will be considered as a regulator to the settlement system. The Payment and Settlement System Act of 2007 gives the RBI oversight authority for the payment and settlement system in the country. So RBI focuses on the development and functioning of safe, secure and efficient payment and the settlement mechanisms. So what are the settlement problems arised among the banks or between the banks and the peoples? So the Reserve Bank of India only will be regulating that work. Next, developmental role. So the development role includes the development of the quality banking system in India and ensuring that credit is available to the productive sectors of the economy. And it provides a wide range of promotional functions to support national objectives. So the promotional functions means so we must increase the infrastructure facilities provided by the government. So when we have the good infrastructure facilities only, we can earning the more foreign direct investment. So because of that only, our nations will be moving towards the development. So for increasing our GDP, so more industrial sector is needed, and the industrial sector also must be having the high demanded commodities. So when we have not sufficient amount of money to start any of the industries in our nations, we must need of foreign direct investment. So because of this foreign direct investment only, our nations will be improved. So it also includes establishing institutions designed to build the country's financial infrastructure. One country's financial infrastructure is being as very proper way only, it will have the good name of the countries. Next, publisher of monetary authority of data. So publisher of monetary data and other data. So RBI maintains and provides all essential banking and other economic data, formulating and critically evaluating the economic policies in India. So whenever the Indian governments are taking any of the policies or making or formulating any of the policies, So it must need some of the related data. So the monetary data and all other related data. So the Reserve Bank of India only will be collecting and formulating all other necessary data. So Reserve Bank of India collects and publishes the data regularly regarding the monetary or the fiscal events. Next, exchange manager and controller. So RBI represents India as a member of the International Monetary Fund. So most of the commercial banks are authorized dealers of RBI. So if we have the one of the members in IMF only, we can get some of the financial facilities whenever we will be in need of having the more financial facilities. Next, banking ombudsman scheme. You may have seen the ombudsman service when you are going to any one of the banks. So the Reserve Bank of India introduced the banking ombudsman schemes in 1995. So under this scheme, the complainants can file their complaints in any form, including online, and can also appeal to the ombudsman against the awards and the other decision of the banks. So nowadays, if any of the problems created by the banks, by the help of ombudsman, we can make a complaint against the bank itself. Next, banking codes and standard of Board of India. To measure the performance of banks against codes and standard based on established global practices. So the RBI has set up the Banking Codes and Standards Boards of India. So if any of the standard of banking is not satisfied, so the Reserve Bank of India will be providing some of the codes and standards. So last point, I will tell some details about the data. So enough students. So today just we have studied the functions of this Reserve Bank of India only. If you have any doubt, please ask me. I will tell later. Thank you.